Well, welcome everybody to this, our first of 6 in this farm employment workshop series. Welcome to Farm Labor 101. I think you're going to enjoy it. We've got a couple excellent guest speakers and yeah, some very helpful information, and I hope you find it helpful in your endeavors. I'm Ben Zoba. I'm the beginning farmer educator here at New Entry Sustainable Farming Project, and I'll just give you a brief intro to New Entry before I hand it over to our presenters. But our mission at New Entry Sustainable Farming Project is to train and support new farmers, encourage resilient farming practices, facilitate access to local food and farm products, and to build strong support networks for diverse agricultural communities. And we have a few different teams at New Entry. I'm in the farmer training team. We're responsible for our courses, our workshops, our incubator program, and a lot of technical assistance that we do with growers. We also have a food hub that buys from our incubator farmers, alumni farmers, and other local producers. And then we have a national program that works with other apprenticeship and incubator programs around the country, trying to develop best practices to help each other serve farmers better. I'm happy you're all here. I will be sending everyone some resources, slides, and other links that might come up during the conversation. And to do so, just make sure your Zoom name is the same as the name that you registered with, because I'll be taking attendance via our Zoom log. So if your name that's pictured in Zoom is different than the one you registered with, you can go to participant at the bottom and change your name, or you can send me a private text message with your first and last name. That would be fine as well. Feel free to add your name in the chat. Looks like some folks are already doing that, adding your farm name or organization name. Maybe you'll meet somebody who's a participant that you want to collaborate with on something fun. And both of our presenters are happy to take clarifying questions during their presentation. I'll be trying to monitor the chat if you have clarifying questions, but we'll also have a time for Q&A after each presentation. So questions are welcome. Happy to hear from you all, and I'll do my best to monitor the chat. Also, to help us, there will be a brief survey, very short, probably only take a few minutes, that will pop up when you log out of Zoom. And if you wouldn't mind helping us out with that, it'll help us improve future workshops to try to make them more, or just whatever we can learn to serve farmers. Happy to hear your feedback regarding that. And it also helps us report back to our funders to see what impact these workshops are having. And as Beth mentioned to us in a call, it can be a good way for you all to kind of help some of the things you learned sink in a bit, especially the last 2 questions on the survey. It's only a 9-question survey, pretty quick, but it's kind of what's your takeaway? And if you write it down, the chances of actually doing it are significantly increased. This is the first of a 6-part series, so we're in for a lot of good content. And here's a schedule of the next 5, and I will be emailing these slides to you all. So no need to copy all this down. It will be available on our events page, which I'll probably copy and paste into the chat in case you all want to see what New Entry is offering in the future. But I hope you can make future workshops as well. As far as some of the events New Entry has coming up, we've got a pumpkin smash happening at Moraine Farm on November 9th. Should be a good time. Save those Halloween pumpkins and come launch them with a trebuchet and see some good folks. We also, our 14th annual field school is coming up. So if you're in a farmer training organization and would like to collaborate and meet a bunch of other folks and attend some excellent workshops, that's happening in Austin, Texas, starting November 12th. And then New Entry offers a farm business planning course, and the next session will be starting July 13th. The plan for the day is, after my little intro here, we'll hear first from Beth Holtzman, who I'll give her bio in one moment. And then there'll be a time for Q&A after Beth's presentation. Then we'll hear from Andrew Lawson and have a time for Q&A with him and Beth. Beth's planning to stick around to the end. So any questions that don't get answered during that first Q&A for Beth, you have another option, another opportunity there. I want to thank our funder, the Northeast Extension Risk Management Education, NERMI as we fondly refer to it as, for funding this workshop series. We're very appreciative, and hopefully you all find it helpful. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Beth Holtzman. She manages the UVM's extension for New Farmer Project and Women's Agricultural Network, and she works to help farmers develop successful farm businesses. Recently, she's been focusing on labor management, so helping farmers build better systems for hiring, training, and retaining employees, and establishing farm workplace culture that supports quality of life for everyone who works on the farm. And Beth led the development of the Farm Labor Dashboard, which you're going to hear a lot about. And I think if you haven't used it yet, you're going to be very excited to learn about it. It's a wonderful suite of tools to help labor management. So Beth, without further ado, I'll stop sharing my screen. Thank you so much for making the time to join us and share your insights. And yeah, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Just give me a moment here to share my screen. Hopefully you can see my slides. They showing up? Okay, great. Well, thank you all for being here. And as I was just saying to Ben and Andrew, I think this is a really great time to start thinking about your employee plan for the next growing season. While some of the successes and challenges of 2025 are fresh in your mind. And so you can incorporate this stuff as you move forward with your plan for 2026. The Farm Labor Dashboard has a variety of decision support tools and resources to help you do that. So I'm gonna, here's my little session overview. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about where these tools came from. I'll give you a quick tour of the tools and resources, and we'll have time for discussion and Q&A at the end. And why it matters. Labor is a significant expense. Hired labor on farms that have it as they scale up can be up to 30 to 50% of the expense budget. And if you consider the labor of the owner in terms of cost of production, it's even more. It's a huge factor, especially for produce and specialty crops. Similarly, there's similar economics for small scale non-dairy livestock, where a lot of the work is done by hand. In small scale operations, it just can't be mechanized. So labor is a barrier to scaling up. You can plant more, but keeping your beds weed free and harvesting requires more hands the more beds you have. Buying equipment can be part of it, investing in equipment and infrastructure. But labor is still going to be a significant component. Right now, the labor pool for this kind of work is scarce, and quality labor is even scarcer. As my colleague, John Hendrickson, who I see is on your schedule for later, says, he used to be able to find college kids who would do the work. It's becoming harder and harder to find people who are willing to do the work, do it through the season, and do it well. It's really hard, even for people who are committed to and want to work on farms. The whole seasonal nature of the work makes it tough for them to figure out how to have quality of life and make a living. And then there's the whole host of regulatory issues, which I know you'll be handling in other sessions. And then finally, there's a piece of this that a lot of people.
这个是一个学习的一个。
There's a lot of people who start farms, and being an employer wasn't in the list of things that they thought of about why they wanted to farm. And so learning how to be a good employer can be a stretch for many of us as beginning farmers. We may have had experience being somebody's employee, and that experience is a really good reference point, but there's a lot to learn. So that's why this is important, why we started looking into it. And a multi-state team that included folks from Vermont, New Hampshire, Nebraska, New York, Minnesota, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and South Carolina did a bunch of farmer interviews over several years. We did 2 rounds of them about 5 years apart, and these were the farmer identified issues. And a key one that I'll be talking about today is farmer readiness. And also related to that, communication issues, management style, finding, keeping, training employees. And I'm not going to delve too much today into the gender and age issues, but they are connected to keeping working and also communication on the farm. And I know you'll be looking at legal issues in another session. So the farm labor dashboard, gonna just jump right in. The idea was to address these farmer issues, to help farmers build key skills and knowledge. We really wanted to empower farmers to make informed decision making, and we wanted to help people implement effective practices that help them hire the employees that help make their businesses successful and also that contribute to their quality of life. So the dashboard can be used directly by farmers. People sometimes.
That is the wrong link.
I'm sorry? Oh, okay.
I think somebody might need to mute themselves.
Okay. Sorry about that, folks. So some people incorporate it in other risk management and farm business programs. You might see it show up there. And we've been encouraging people who do farm viability consulting and farm business consulting to use it in context with their clients. When you go to the dashboard, you can use it without logging in, or you can use all the tools and resources without logging in. But in order to save your work, to be able to come back another day to continue working on something, you'll want to create an account and log in, and then you'll have access to your work where you left off. And I think this is especially important because some of the tools are going to require most people to do a little research or have conversations with their partners. So you're going to want to come back another time. It's not going to be sit down in one session and get it done. And then you can whittle away at it in smaller chunks that feel more approachable. Also, I want you to know that the Farm Labor Dashboard does not extract or share any information from tool users. We may, from time to time, ask for feedback, which is always optional, but we do not keep or look at anybody's work. We don't share it with anybody. It's personal to you. So when you get there, you want to log in. I suggest that you create a new account. It takes just a couple of minutes to do it. Probably most people here are used to creating online accounts for different apps and services. It's pretty much like that.
Hi, Beth. This is Bing. There are a whole bunch of us on a different Zoom link. Apparently, we were sent the wrong link. There were about 30 persons on that link, and we have just received a new one. So myself and a few others have just joined this session. If we would really appreciate it if you could catch us up because we missed the first 15 minutes.
Sure. So most of the beginning of the session, Ben was kind of orienting everybody to the new entry program for these set of labor related workshops and other and new entries mission and its overall programs. And then I gave a quick background about the origin of the farm labor dashboard tools and resources as decision support tools that were the result of what farmers told us in 2 different research projects about the barriers that they faced with being employers and the kinds of tools and support that they thought would help them. And I was just about to start getting into the first tool that I was going to go over. I'm going to stop now and see if there are any questions about what I've talked about so far, or if anybody else who's here wants to add in something that they think is important for those who just joined.
I think you did a great summary. Thanks, Beth.
And I know the session's being recorded, so you can go listen to the first 15 minutes or so. So when you get to the dashboard, there's that yellow arrow, it's pointing to the tools. That's where you would click to access the tools. And then it will look something like this. There's the 5 major tools that we have. And the first one I'm going to talk about is our self-assessment tool, which is helping people do a self-assessment about whether they're ready to hire. So
No, not really.
there's 21 questions that are divided into 6 areas: planning, recruiting and hiring, training and supervision, record keeping, taxes and insurance, performance review, and ending employment. And the tool will, depending on your answers to the questions, it will help to come up with a summary of your strengths, some weak links, and it will suggest some resources that will help you start building those skills or knowledge areas. So these are just some of the examples. So at the end, when you click submit, you'll get a visual representation of your strengths as a labor manager. So if you were someone who was the perfect labor manager, you would have kind of a perfect, I guess it's a hexagon. All your dots would be on the extreme outside. The outside is areas of strength. The inside is areas where you need to build on the web on the right side of the screen. So it's the kind of thing you can come back, you can do multiple times. I wouldn't, if you're doing it, I wouldn't, think too hard. Don't worry too much about your answers. If what comes back seems like it doesn't recognize an area where you think you have more expertise or background, don't worry about it. It's just sort of giving you a sense of where you could build and kind of the areas where you can lean on, where you have strengths. Later on, so the links in the self-assessment go to various resources that are embedded in the resource part of the farm labor dashboard, and I'll talk about that in a little bit after we go through the tools. You'll see some of those. So the next tool is the Employee Cost Estimator. And I didn't realize that John was this was developed by John Hendrickson, and he'll probably talk some more when he talks. I think it might have been in January. I'll go over this quickly. He has a whole suite of other financial related tools that I'm sure he'll talk about as well. The idea of the estimator is that the total cost of having employees is more than the wages that you pay them. There's payroll taxes, there's if likely workers, there's payroll taxes, there's workers' compensation or insurance, payroll or accident insurance. You might be providing specific tools or perhaps like PPE, personal protective equipment, that you provide to your employees that costs you money. In some cases, farmers provide food or housing, maybe bonuses, incentives. There may be other things that you provide as a benefit that all need to be included in the total cost of having employees. So the idea is that this tool is going to walk you through the various components of, I thought there's a picture here that's not showing up. The various components of figuring out what that total cost is. And it starts with asking you to think about the total potential hours an employee might work in each month. So in this example, you can see that we think that this employee is going to start in April with 80 hours and then pretty consistently work 40-hour weeks in May, June, July, August, September, and then a little bit less in October for a total of 960 hours. And then the next thing it asks you to do is to put in an estimate, put in what you think you might be paying your employee. And also, so there's the pay rate per hour, and then it's an annual amount for food, employee housing, other expenses that are associated with having an employee. Then you'll scroll down and you get to the complicated stuff. And this is where you put in numbers for payroll taxes and workers' compensation. So there is detailed information on this part of the dashboard of this tool that helps you understand what numbers would be appropriate for you to plug in for your situation. And so what we have is some placeholders for FICA, which is the Social Security Medicare piece, for FUTA, which is federal unemployment tax, SUTA, state unemployment tax, and a wage base. So for the state piece, you'll need to find the applicable rate and wage base for your state. And to help with that, we compiled a 2025 table of wage bases and tax rates for each state. So these things do change. So you might want to check in with your state's Department of Labor if you want to make sure you have the most up-to-date numbers. But if you're looking for like a more general estimate, what we have will probably work for you. Workers' compensation is even more complicated, and it's generally not based on a simple percentage the way the payroll taxes are. But for the purposes of this tool, a percentage is used to make things more simple. And the 6% is a reasonable number to use. According to our friends at Farm Commons, who provided a lot of advice on this component of the tool, While workers' compensation in some states is optional for farms, paying into a workers' compensation insurance program is generally recommended because it really helps to protect the farm from the farm business from risks associated with injuries. Again, for both of these pieces, we have two pagers that I think of as like payroll tax 101 and workers' compensation 101 for farmers that you can use to inform yourself when you get there. This is actually the first page of the when you get there. And I recommend that you name your report. And it's a really good idea because it will, if what we've seen people doing with this tool over the past 3 years is that they run multiple scenarios as they're thinking about their options for how they might staff their farm. And so you want to choose a good name for your report that helps you to understand what's in it when you come back to it. And you can also add up to 3 employees. So in one report, you can look and see like, what if and each employee can have a different hours and different wage rate. So you can try and get a sense of what the whole package would look like. And when you hit submit at the end, you'll get, it's a 1-pager, and it gives you an overview of what your what you was in your estimated costs and what it looks like. And you can download it as a PDF. And I think that one of the most important uses of this is this kind of report to be able to analyze and compare. And in particular, it might be helpful for you to understand the total cost of your employee and also the cost per hour. Like when you send someone out to do something, what is it costing you per hour for their work? And in the context of what it is that you need to get accomplished and why they're going out to do a task. We also have a Excel version for those who want to work on their own computer. The Excel version offers the ability to enter weekly hours instead of monthly, and for up to 6 employees. It has the same process for tallying up benefits and payroll taxes, and it also has a link to a living wage database. And it has this added step of where it can calculate monthly payroll, biweekly payroll, and quarterly payroll tax filing amounts. So if you're using this to do beyond a sort of estimate, if you're really trying to get down into the weeds of the numbers, the Excel version may be a better option for you. And also whether you like working in Excel. So if you need help with this, if you have suggestions on ways we could improve it, here's my colleague, John. He's a farm viability specialist in Wisconsin, and he is always happy to get feedback and to offer help to beginning farmers on how to navigate the tool. And the last comment I want to make about this tool is that we call it an estimator because it may or may not be completely accurate, depending on how well you've done your homework in terms of plugging in some of those numbers. But it would give you, particularly people who are considering employees for the first time or who are looking at some major changes in the way you do your staffing, it can give you that like 10,000 foot level sense of what the full cost would look like. And if you want to go further into the weeds and projecting that. So our newest tool is this equipment cost recovery calculator, another tool developed by John, and I'm not going to talk too much about it today because it's really geared to more advanced beginning farmers and technical service providers. But I do want to point out it can be particularly relevant to operations that are trying to scale up. Because it relies in part on the user's prior data, it's appropriate for operations that have reasonably good sense of what their current labor situation is. And then from there, it can help you create projections of the impact of an investment in equipment or infrastructure, say something like a water wheel transplanter, that could affect both the kind of labor and its cost. So again, if you do use it and have questions or feedback, John would be happy to hear from you. Our fourth tool is our job description generator. That helps farm employees to formalize and create consistency across jobs. And job descriptions are really helpful in the recruiting and hiring process, but they can also be really helpful in terms of onboarding and supervision and providing both the employee and their managers clarity about expectations, tasks, and roles. So having good job descriptions and consistent job descriptions, I think, can be a tool to help avoid conflict and also to promote efficiency. So this tool will lead you through a process of drafting job descriptions. There's one module that's specifically for produce and specialty crop growers, and another for non-dairy livestock farms. We don't have one that's really appropriate for large-scale agronomic crop farms or dairy at this point. So as you go through the tool, there are prompts that are going to help you identify tasks and responsibilities, the qualifications that you're looking for, the work environment that the person is expected will be working in, and wages and benefits. And throughout, you'll see that there's example language that you will be able to adapt and modify to reflect your farm's unique situation. And here's what it looks like. It makes you come up with 100% of a job. You can't make 150%. And I think maybe you could make, I think you have to make 100%. It offers, once you put something into each of those fields, it offers some opportunities for you to further elaborate on the specific plant care and field work. Is that a question?
Sorry, no.
And then there's checkboxes for the qualifications and skills and experience. A little bit about work environment. It allows you to put in what your wages and benefits are, the kind of position it is, and really important, who this position would report to. And when you hit save, again, you get a PDF. It pretty much is what you can use. This is an example for plant care and field work for crew. And our final tool is our policy manual generator, and that helps farmers build a handbook for employees. And I think there are just so many benefits to investing the time in a quality employee handbook when it's well thought through and routinely updated. This document can really enhance employee performance by helping them understand exactly what you expect from all employees. It can be a really useful tool for orientation and onboarding. It can really help improve communication. It ensures consistency. It supports a productive and healthy work environment. I've seen people go through this handbook generator and have really, really different outcomes. You know, one farm that is, you know, everybody comes, we work hard, we go home. We don't do touchy-feely. It's just like work, get a paycheck, go. Another one that like clearly articulates in this handbook what's expected of people in terms of how everyone's treated, the importance of having weekly meetings, you know, respect. Some of them go into great detail. So it really allows you to articulate the pieces of what kind of workplace culture you are striving for, and it can really be helpful for you and for the employees to make sure there's a good fit. A good handbook clearly communicates expectations, both for employees and management. It outlines steps for conflict resolution when it does arise, and overall, it supports legal compliance. It can often make it easier to have a difficult conversation because you have in writing the expectation. And it really helps ensure that all workers are treated fairly because everyone has a common understanding of expectations. While we have a lot of suggested language, we recommend that people who use this tool do take a moment to consult with either an attorney or your state's Department of Labor to make sure what's in your handbook aligns with the most up-to-date information on related laws. So this tool will take some time for you to go through. There are, I think, 12 topic areas, and each one opens and has numerous components. Here's the different major categories. Here's an example of work hours and scheduling. So you can take the statement, you can modify it, you can come up with something different. It goes on through every section is like that. And I would anticipate that when you're doing this, first of all, it is a lot of work to come up with a good employee manual. But also there are others in your business who you probably are going to want to talk to and think through, and you may want to look for other examples than what we have to come up with what's right for you. Similarly, you can download the PDF, and then you can use it in your orientation. We also recommend that you take a look at it and update it annually. Like your first time through, it'll be good. And the second time through, it'll be just a little bit better. And the third time through, it will be better than that. And every time you go through, you'll have a chance to respond to things that have come up in the previous season. One of the things that came up recently for a number of growers that I was in contact with was the need to have a section on handling weather. And in particular, like because thunder and lightning storms were happening more often and earlier in the day. And so they felt like they really needed to think through how they were going to handle those situations. So there may be things that are emerging specifically for your farm or in your area that you'll want to add. There's an open section where you can add your particular policies. The final piece I want to share with you is our resource section. And so in the resource section, you can see I've lost track. I think we have quite a few resources now, and you can access them. They're mostly oriented to farm owners, managers, crew leaders, and employees. And you can search and filter by topic areas, for example, hiring, managing, legal topics, by the material type, and by language. So you can enter, like you're in the search bar there, you can enter the thing that you have a question about, or you can go through the menus and use the menus. So here's an example of looking at managing employees and all topics. And here's an example of looking at for hiring and recruiting employees. And one of the things that comes up for a self-study package, it has multiple resources together on recruiting employees, and there's a whole package on interviewing and evaluating applicants. And so here's another example. Oh, here, this is the going into detail. These are all the things that are included in that package. And this is something that would be referenced in that first "Are you ready to hire" assessment. If your answers suggest that you need to build some knowledge and skills related to recruiting and interviewing and hiring, it will point you to these resources. These are the, here's my acknowledgement slide, our funders and our partners. And with that, I'm ready for questions. Okay, it's very quiet.
I saw one question in the chat, but I think it was answered. Is this free to use, Beth?
It is completely free to use.
I love that answer.
Yes. So one thing that the latecomers might not have heard, and I think is worth repeating, is that it is free to use. And while we encourage people to log in and set up their own account so they can get back to their work at a future time, but we do not use any of anything that you put in is yours. We don't share it. We don't use it. We don't look at it. And before we delete it, we'll let you know. So you can also use it without logging in. You just want to remember to download your work as you go so you don't lose it.
Another question I see in the chat here, we have, what would you say are the biggest challenges that farm managers tend to face regarding labor employment management?
Okay, so I think that finding and keeping the right employees for your farm and being able to pay a wage that keeps them is a big challenge that people talk about. Communication and being a leader, being a manager and a leader for many early stage farmers can be challenging. And I think it's in part because many of us don't go into farming with the idea of being a manager, a human resources manager. That's not what the appeal is. The appeal is to grow things and feed our community, and maybe, there are lots of other values that are motivating farmers. So I think just developing the skill set to be effective in a way that keeps your own stress down. It can be really stressful for people. And I'm curious actually what other people think, because that's just my perception. I bet, I don't know, there's 60 people in the room now. I bet you all have good insights into what the stressful or the most challenging parts are.
Anyone care to unmute and share what you found to be the biggest challenges?
I can just share. I think I managed a farm for 2 years and had 2 apprentices, and just making sure that they're off their phones. So that can be a challenge. And also, like, everyone wanting to have earbuds in and trying to encourage them to, like, just be part of the nature around you and noticing the killdeer flying ahead or things like that. You know, I think listening to things during hoeing for 2 hours, like that's, you know, that's fine, but having an earbud in all day, every day, you don't really get to like hone in on the farm. So just trying to keep away technology here and there.
So, and I think those are great observations, and that's like where the policy manual can really help by like articulating like what expectations are around phones and you know, is there going to be music? Is there like all those kinds of things? They're not easy things to think through, but if that's in your policy manual and you're sharing it with prospective employees, then they know what they're in for. And or they can ask you about, maybe they can suggest changes if it, you know, and you have a way to talk about it.
Related to the policy generator. Oh, sorry, Alana, you can ask yours. There was a question in the chat, Beth, about does the policy generator allow for safety policies?
There are safety policies. There's a safety section in there. I was thinking if we had time at the end, we could do a live tour instead of on slides, and show people more, but I don't want to take away from Andrew's time. So, because I think seeing how some of these things play out in his operation would be helpful.
Well, we still do have time if that's something we can do, but we'll see how many other questions are first, maybe, but that could be helpful. Alana, did you want to ask something?
No, I just wanted to add for like I noticed that too. We just hired a new person that he insists on having music all the time. And it's for us, it's a safety issue because we have like equipment and just stuff around. And even though we say don't use it, he's still insistent. And so I don't know. I don't know if it's a younger generation thing or what, but it's interesting. I don't know. Me and my supervisor are trying to figure out how to get him to not do that. And so I don't know if anybody has like suggestions or anything.
I could, hi, this is Shannon Lowe. I could just offer that, in some of the, operations that I worked in, things like, your jewelry, earbuds, cell phones were all part of food safety concerns. And so because of that, they just weren't allowed at all. So we did offer in certain areas, like if it was in a pack house or pack room, then as long as everyone agreed to the genre of the music that was played, then they could have music. But if you were someone who was harvesting or seeding or planting, then those things were not even allowed. In the pack room, they were not allowed as well. We did have entry control points where if someone wanted to take a break, they could go and do that, to check their cell phones, to maybe eat a snack or drink and listen to music or whatever. But once they pass that entry control point, those operation areas, then those particular items just weren't allowed, because the last thing you want to do is hear back from a customer that they found an earbud in one of the boxes or packages. So we just didn't allow it at all.
Yeah, thank you for that.
So I just would say that we did workshops in 2024, and these issues about cell phones and music and came up in these learning circles over and over and over again. And then in our 2025 ones, it was like the people who came, it wasn't an issue. They had other things going on. It's interesting to hear it emerging in this group again. And it is not, I think it's a really challenging topic to sort out. So,
Any final questions for Beth? And Beth, we do have some time if you did want to do that live demonstration. And you're getting a lot of love in the chat, by the way. People grateful
Okay.
to learn about this amazing resource.
I have a question, or I guess like a challenge that would dovetail into a question as well. I work at a very, very small scale environmental justice nonprofit where stewarding an urban farm is just like one part of what we're doing. And we have the issue where we only have 3 year-round staff. And then when we have seasonal people come on, we want to be able to hand off a decent amount of agency to them, but how to balance our really limited capacity with the fact that these seasonal employees don't have like the year-to-year buy-in that we do and potentially don't have the knowledge and background that we do. So if anyone has thoughts on like how to pass off responsibility and agency while also protecting like the longevity and safety of the operation.
I don't have great suggestions off the top of my head, except for to say that I think that this is a common challenge for many farms because of balancing like the the seasonal nature of the work and keeping people. And what I have seen are some farms that very intentionally shift into production where where like the majority of their employees are year round. Like they're thinking about the way that they can have people year round or close to year round so they aren't perpetually retraining and needing to find the right fit again and again and again. And so that has shifted like what they're growing and how they grow it and what they're doing from what they originally thought they were going to be doing. Like, so, and in your case, with your mission, I don't know how you thread that needle off the top of my head.
Anyone else care to share any insights about that? I do see another question in the chat, Beth. Do you have any, regarding the policy generator, do you have any completed manuals that folks have said they don't mind sharing, or ideas about how it was shared with employees besides just sharing the document?
Okay, so in terms of completed manuals, I can find some examples and share and get them to you, Ben, to share with the group. It may not be tomorrow. It may take a little longer to get permission to do that. And then in terms of, wait, the second part of the question was?
Ideas about how it was shared with employees besides just sharing it, I guess.
So in some cases, one group that we worked with, they give it to every employee when they're hired, and they go over it. Sometimes they have like mini meetings and go over parts of the manual with a group based, to maybe address an issue that seems to be emerging. And they also, I think in this group, they also have solicited suggestions from their employees for what else needs to be in the manual so that so every year they're updating it and they're giving it to people and they're pointing out the changes. It's a living document.
I know for us, like the farm that we're at, there's like no internet out there, so we can't share like internet links. So it's easier just to print out the policies. It's a lot of paper, but it's easier to print out them and give it to the employees and have a copy on site just in case somebody needs to look at it. So I don't know if that's helpful.
So,
and I had a completely different question along the different lines. Does anyone have advice for people that got into farming that are very introverted and now have to deal with this like staff setup. It just doesn't, I guess I know how to do it, but you know, I left like the corporate environment and I really don't want to do like when I read other people's job descriptions, they talk about like all this team stuff and team building. And I guess I get that you have to have a team and you have to be like cohesive, but what do you do when you're naturally introverted personality?
So I think every team, it's hard with a small farm, but every team is better with a mixture of different kinds of personalities and strengths. And so like one way to address that is if you have a partner or an employee or a friend of the farm who has that that temperament and skills of like matching what the needs are to the right people. Like it might be about making your team, like who you bring onto your team, and that like you might be more comfortable working with another introverted person, but maybe part of your team needs to be that person who can do the things that you don't want to, or that aren't in your strengths. That would be like one approach to doing it. I've also seen farmers who, again, they change what they're doing. They really don't want to be managers, and so they change what they're doing to manage people as little as possible.
Well, I've noticed, like, just working with my husband more on the farm, right? There's some things that go faster. Like we transplant together because it goes way faster. But otherwise, we split into different tasks because we get more done that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's where like even just writing job descriptions for you and your husband of who does what's in who, and like this is not your responsibility, this is your responsibility, these tasks. Even if it's not an employee, but even, taking that approach might be a helpful step
Yeah.
to have clarity.
Okay. Thank you.
It's an idea.
I just wanted to add, Shannon Lowe again. I just wanted to add that SOPs became my thing because it was always about the business. So just carrying out the operation the way that you have it planned kind of helped with my slightly introverted personality, because that way you can be consistent. So if you're bringing on employees, you want to make sure that you're consistent with if their behavior was something that matched the behavior of another employee, that you handle it in the same way. You don't want to vary it off to where you're like, this person does it and then they're terminated, but this person does it and then you give them strike 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
Because of that, I became that person. So my director actually, there would be people that didn't even work under me, but they would call me over to operations and say, we need to terminate this employee, or we need to write this employee up. Can you handle that? And it was because that was the approach I took, was everything was by the book. So if it was a policy, then they violated that policy, then that was so. If it was something that someone just didn't like about the person, and so then they reported them to the higher ups, but then I looked into policy and it wasn't against it, then I went to bat for that person. And I went and said, we can't do that because there's nothing in your books that says this. So you not only are you managing people, but you're also going to bat for your team. So I think that if you, just like she just suggested that, write an SOP about what you do and what your husband does, is a good start. And then as you bring people on, you can build on that. And then, that way you have like a set of guidelines that they know what their responsibilities are, what they're accountable for, and they know what they're accountable for.
Great. Thank you.
These are great questions and great responses. Thank you.
Any final questions for Beth? And it sounds like, Beth, you'll be sticking around, so if
Yeah,
people think of other questions, they can
Yep.
ask them after Andrew's presentation.
absolutely.
Awesome, great, thanks. All right, well, Beth, really appreciate you sharing your insights, and thanks for your great work on that dashboard. Very helpful tools, and I'm glad folks will get to tinker around and explore. And yeah, I really appreciate all you've done to make that available to people. And I'd like to apologize to folks who got the wrong link. That was my bad, I think. So I really apologize. Glad you all made it. Beth, I'm sorry if some of the tech issues created a daunting environment, but you rolled with it very well. And yeah, so glad we're here now. Just as a quick reminder before I introduce Andrew Lawson, I will be emailing everyone some resources, slides, the recording, but I need to make sure I have your correct name. So if the name on this Zoom meeting is at all different than the one you registered with, just make sure you either send me a private message in the chat with your first and last name, or you can change your Zoom name to whatever you registered with. And then also a second reminder, you will get a very brief poll that will pop up when you log out of the meeting. And it would be very helpful to us if you take just a few minutes to answer those questions. All right. So next up, we've got Andrew Lawson. So Andrew's the head grower at Appleton Farm. He grew up outside of Utica, New York, on a dairy farm. He farmed for a bit in Western Massachusetts and Maine. He managed a greenhouse business. He did some grad work related to cover crops and the nitrogen cycle. But he's been managing the crew at Appleton Farm for 9 years, and he's responsible for the hiring and training of the crew and making sure the systems are in place so that everyone's set up for success. And I know he's beloved by his crew because Leah German, our current farm manager at New Entry, worked with Andrew for 4 years, and she's always singing your praises. So Andrew, we're so grateful that you made the time to join us and share some of your insights with us. Welcome, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I'm glad to be here. I'm going to get my PowerPoint. All right, is that coming through?
Looks great.
All right. So good evening, everyone. Yeah, at Appleton Farms, we're located in Ipswich, Mass, and we're part of the Trustees of Reservations, which is a land conservation nonprofit in Massachusetts. So, you know, we are a farm. I run a vegetable enterprise here, and I'm going to be talking about the planning, hiring, and managing of the employees at Appleton Farm, the veg operation here. So as everyone here knows, farmers wear many hats. You know, a lot of folks think farmers are growing crops, raising livestock, and troubleshooting, you know, pests and equipment problems. But what I quickly realized here at Appleton Farms is one of the key parts of the job is managing a team of people, you know, training folks, keeping people on tasks, making sure there's systems in place, and really just trying to set everyone up for success. You all know it's hard work, and if we're not organized with a team, then things can go awry pretty quickly. So I'm going to sort of share a bit about how we do things here, and it's certainly been an evolution over the years. So before I talk about specifically labor hiring and managing a team, I just wanted to give some context so folks sort of have an understanding of the veg operation. So we crop 25 acres every year in veg production. Our primary outlets are summer and winter CSAs. We're an on-farm mix and match market style share which does have some labor implications. You know, we're not packaging, bagging, bunching produce. It doesn't have to be perfectly clean. We put cherry tomatoes and green beans in our pick your own field to save time on harvest. We also have some retail sales through our farm store. We do some wholesale, and more or less everything we grow leaves the farm to our store. So all these add up to, you know, a business model that impacts the type of labor we're hiring, and how many folks we need. Another piece of the labor puzzle is mechanization. Beth touched on this a bit. On our farm, you know, we're using equipment for tillage, for bed prep, transplanting, cultivation. On the labor end of things, you know, especially field scale hand labor, harvest and hand weeding are sort of the big pieces of the puzzle. And then we have production arenas that we like to sort of use our more skilled and core staff in helping to manage the day-to-day operations. So our greenhouse, our high tunnel, transplanting, all different equipment operation, our wash station, and CSA distribution. And it's really important that the team is working together, that everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing, and there's synergy. Otherwise, we're really sacrificing efficiency on the farm. So labor needs, you know, when I put this talk together, I really have sort of focused on seasonal labor. And we sort of divided into two different types of staff that we're hiring. So our core crew is our skilled staff. And we're getting close to year round. We're not quite there yet. But as Beth was saying, that, you know, trying to keep folks busy year round really helps with staff retention. These people are using equipment, helping manage some of our production arenas. They may manage the crew from time to time. They're offering aspiring career farmers. And, you know, we're putting higher expectations on these folks with higher responsibilities. And they're really key to the smooth operation of our farm. And then we have our summer crew. These are usually, you know, 4 to 6 month positions, up to 30 hours per week. And they're spending really all their time helping with field hand labor, so harvest, hand weeding, transplanting. And these are folks that often only work 1 or 2 seasons. They're transient in their life. They may be a college or high school student. So then we have some year-round folks. Obviously, myself, I'm overseeing the operation. Assistant manager who's helping, has a key role in helping manage and lead the crew, helping with hiring, and also overseeing certain aspects of the operation here. And then our CSA distribution manager, which we've been able to combine with some store hours to make a year-round position. So staff planning, you know, the farm here has been in operation for 24 years now. And the staff planning, we're really sort of refining year to year. So it's based on previous years of experience. And it certainly sort of changes as we're changing our systems, investing in equipment and infrastructure. Staff retention plays such a key role in that, in that, you know, people that have been here 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they know the systems, they know the farm. We have good working relationships. They can help with training staff. You know, we can sort of continue to build their skill set and evolve their role to take on more responsibilities. So that's really key to the success of this farm. And then over the course of the year, we're constantly taking notes, keeping records of when we're overstaffed or when we're in a labor bottleneck, what types of tasks aren't getting done. So we can use that information to sort of refine our staff plan for the next year. And as I was saying, you know, equipment and infrastructure really can have a huge impact on staff planning. About 7 years ago, we invested in a mechanical transplanter. That one piece of equipment cut our transplanting time in half. But with the addition of that equipment, we now need a skilled equipment operator. That piece of equipment also requires a very precise bed making system. So then we need to make sure whoever's doing the bed prep is doing things well enough for that implement to work. So sure, maybe it reduces some of your labor needs, but it is adding a certain amount of skill to the overall package. This is probably a simple version of what Beth showed us earlier, but we do sort of, the staff planning sort of evolves into a labor budget where we're putting together a plan with how many folks we need, how many hours we think we need them per month, and then we're trying to estimate wages over the course of the year, and using that as part of our operating budget. So once we have our staff plan in place, we're ready to hire. We do like to start early in the fall, hopefully November. We have posted our job descriptions on all these different sites here. Honestly, we've probably had the most success with sort of our local networks. So reaching out to schools and colleges, posting on social media. We've hired some of our best folks that have just sort of walked onto the farm looking for work. Indeed continues to be a great place for us to source folks. And then some of our local ag networks have been places that we like to advertise. Occasionally we get some applicants that are strong, but maybe they've been less fruitful for us. As I'm receiving applications, I really like folks that have sent their resume with a cover letter or just any sort of short letter of interest. I think it shows that that person has thought through the position and why they want it, and has sort of taken an extra step of initiative in the application process. And so, as we're receiving applications, we might take 1 out of every 10 applications as being worthwhile of an interview. The interview we prefer to do in person. It's typically me and our assistant manager doing the interviewing. Sometimes folks aren't local and we start with a phone interview and then try to arrange for an in-person interview. And at that point, we can typically eliminate another half of the applicants we've had. Then it's on to calling references. And for me, references have been just as important as the interview itself. I find that it's a better gauge of character and just getting a feel for if the person is actually a good fit for our enterprise here. And then as we're interviewing folks, we do encourage applicants to interview us as much as as we're interviewing them, just to help make sure that it's a good fit for both sides. So what we're looking for in our folks, in our applicants and potential staff members, I sort of prioritize character traits as sort of more important than skill set and having a background in farming. So, your ability to work on a team, to be punctual, to follow directions, take feedback. For our core crew members, work independently. And, we really want people that are interested in doing quality work and they're invested in being here. Obviously, the work is physical. And so we need people that, have either shown they can use their body and work quickly in a high-paced environment, through other jobs they've had, such as service industry or kitchens or landscaping, or often students that are athletes have worked well for us. We do love to find folks that have a background in farming. in this area where we're located, we don't get a whole lot of applicants that have a background in farming. And when they do have a background, we make sure to tell folks that they need to adapt to our systems. And then, you know, I like to have a conversation with folks that are applying and just be upfront about the physical nature of the work, that we're working in all different types of weather, that we're often doing repetitive and monotonous tasks, and that we have sort of a certain standard that we're holding folks to, and so to expect feedback and accountability. And all of this is just to ensure that whoever we're hiring is a good fit on both sides. We don't want to hire someone that's going to work for 3 weeks and then decide it's not right for them and leave, and we're in the middle of the season scrambling to fill positions. So rehiring, you know, we love to keep people on for multiple seasons, for some of the reasons I mentioned earlier. You know, in particular, we could sort of promote and train folks on higher level skilled tasks on the farm with different equipment, managing different arenas. They can help manage the crew, help with some of the training. And so we do everything we can to incentivize people to stay multiple seasons, you know, so lengthening our work season, paying overtime, offering health and retirement. I like to stress the hands-on training opportunity at the farm. People that stay multiple seasons can really elevate their skill set with equipment and equipment maintenance. We do offer housing to folks that are interested. And, you know, generally speaking, we've had more success sort of training and promoting folks than we have had finding experienced workers. So once we've hired our staff, we have an onboarding process. There's some sort of just logistical I-9 forms, background checks. Our HR department here has trainings. And then about a week before people start, I send this essential information for new hires, and it outlines a lot of the sort of basic policies and what to expect when they show up. And we expect people to read this and know these prior to starting with us. On the first day, we're doing introductions with the team. We're giving a tour and showing sort of the lay of the land on the farm. We're talking about safety, vehicles and equipment use. We do a food safety training, and then we have an employee handbook that people are expected to read through and know the policies. So training, I mean, this is a huge part of being a manager, and it's ongoing. I think you know, our season's almost over, and I'm still training our folks every day. You know, I strive to give a big picture while also, you know, teaching the systems and the details, which just helps. I think it helps get people that are invested and also able to sort of troubleshoot when things come up. We're really working to train our core staff in some of the higher level stuff. So we're investing quite a bit of time and energy into training, you know, some of the production arenas, equipment use, but also equipment maintenance. We're sharing planning documents, our crop plan, crop rotations. We do share different materials that have helped inform some of the management decisions we've made around fertility and crop rotations. And then as much as possible, managers working in the field with our staff, we sort of have this show, work with, and then feedback. So when we're training folks, I like to start with showing. Do you still see my slides? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, go back one. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so show someone how to do a task. So they're at first watching, then working with them, and then they're doing enough on their own, and we're giving feedback. And this is really a team effort. We're, relying on manager, the assistant manager, and our core team to help train systems and quality standards. And regular feedback is so important in terms of keeping our quality up. Communication is really key when you have a staff or a team. We have a team of 10 to 12 folks in the summer. Setting clear expectations. I think it starts with the handbook and different policies that we have, and making sure people know that we're going to hold them accountable to those policies. We do team check-ins daily at the beginning of every day and right after lunch. And we're talking about sort of the plan for the day, big picture plan for the week, who's responsible for what. We're looking for staff input as to how things are going, what changes need to be made, answering questions, giving feedback. So that's really key to sort of a smooth flow for the day with the team. And then we do put energy and effort into team building and sort of social time. We take, coffee breaks and celebrate birthdays and other special occasions. We might hang out after work on a Friday. We do team lunches on holidays and at other points in the year. And then individual check-ins. So we try to do these sort of early in the season and late in the season. And it's an opportunity for the manager and the staff member to give feedback to each other, to talk about any issues that might be, happening. And just have a conversation about generally how it's going and how can we make this a positive experience for our folks. So. And then I thought I'd just sort of touch on work culture. This is far into management as I'm going. I think I mentioned this earlier, trying to explain the big picture, to really try to instill a sense of purpose in the team and have invested staff, rotating staff through some of the less desirable jobs. So nobody on our team is above any one task. Obviously I can't spend a ton of time hand weeding carrots, but if I have an extra hour, I'm joining the team. Being organized with a plan in place and then setting expectations for, how the work will go, and expectations on quality standards, is really key to just having a smooth workflow for the team through the day. And then respecting each other's time. This is a big one for me. So we start and end promptly at the scheduled times. If someone's 5 minutes late and I have 12 people waiting 5 minutes before we start our meeting, that's 60 minutes of time that we're paying folks for work they're not doing. And if that one person misses the meeting, then they don't know what they're doing that day. So, and the flip side of it is never working past the end time. We're not asking folks to unexpectedly come in on weekends. And then creating a positive work environment, really trying to show appreciation for the work folks are doing, acknowledging that it's hard work or that the weather is challenging, it's super hot. Trying to give positive feedback more than constructive feedback, and then meeting people where they're at. So if someone's really trying, really wants to be at work, but they're not quite getting it, trying to work with that person to get them to where they need to be, but also acknowledging, that there's a process to getting them to where they need to be on the team. And then, I make a huge effort to connect with everyone on the team and try to make it fun with the team. It is hard work, but we joke around. We have music sometimes. We might play word games while we're weeding carrots. So try to make it, make it an environment where everyone feels like they belong and they want to be here. And that's where I'll end. I'm happy to answer any specific questions about how we do things. And also acknowledge that every farm is a bit different, and I'm sure every person here will probably have a slightly different story. So
Awesome, Andrew. Thank you for sharing those great insights. Any questions from the group? I did see one in the chat, Andrew. Have you ever worked with woofers, worldwide organic, or opportunities on organic farm?
Not specifically woofers. We do take volunteers. And managing volunteers is quite a bit different than managing paid employees. We still have expectations for those folks, but we can't have the same expectations. So and obviously there's not the same opportunity for training. So there's a bit of a trade-off with volunteers. I think they have their place in certain areas on the farm for us. But we know where we want volunteers and where we don't want volunteers. So
nice, thank you. You got another question in the chat. Our biggest challenge is pace and working quickly with urgency. Any tips on how to teach or give feedback to the crew on this?
Yeah, so for me, I try to work with the team as much as I can, and I try to set a pace. And I tell folks, if I'm going twice your pace, then you're in trouble. I think that's where I sort of fall back to big picture and trying to explain what we're trying to accomplish, what challenges we might be faced with, to really get people invested. And I think there's an evolution. If you're taking someone who hasn't farmed before, it might take a whole season or 2 seasons to get them up to a pace where you're sort of satisfied with the work they're doing. So, and I don't know, maybe other folks have different strategies they want to share.
Yeah, if anyone does want to share your strategies, please do. Meanwhile, I'll highlight for those listening to the recording that Beth is putting in the chat a link to the dashboard resources about fast feedback loop tailgate training. So there is a resource they have available to help with this as well. But yeah, anyone else care to share any tips for inspiring the crew to pick up the pace?
Yeah, I will say the feedback is so important. And when I'm giving feedback, I try to highlight the why as much as I'm highlighting what. And I think it sometimes can sort of soften the blow of what feedback can feel like for people. So that's something that I think it helps for me anyway.
Yeah, nice. Another one in the chat. How would volunteers be utilized in for-profit? Do you have a nonprofit arm? As my understanding,
Yeah, so we are a nonprofit. Our Veg Enterprise is a profit generating enterprise for our agency, the Trustees of Reservations, but we are a nonprofit. Our volunteers specifically help in our CSA distribution, welcoming shareholders, helping weeding in the pick your own. And we do sort of trade veggies with these folks. So, they're volunteering their time. I wouldn't call it a work trade or anything, but they are getting vegetables from us. So
nice, thank you. And if you want to hit stop share, your image will show up bigger and
oh,
people
thanks.
can see your smiling face. Another question in the chat is is housing included as part of compensation? How do you handle that?
So we are fortunate to be able to offer housing as part of the compensation package. We have a limited number of rooms, and we typically can house everyone that needs to be housed. We have up to 4 rooms in a shared house. So it's a great thing to be able to offer. It's a luxury that many farms don't have. I'm grateful for that. So.
Nice. Any other questions anyone cares to share by unmuting, or another one came in through the chat here. Okay, tip for helping with pace. I had a question. You mentioned in the interview process you invite folks to interview you, which I think is a great practice. How do you kind of grease the wheels of that process? How do you encourage them?
So I preface it by saying, I want to make sure this is a good fit for both of us. So I want you to, ask me questions about the work we do. And, so it can start out as a conversation that way. And then most people do come with questions that they're sort of, prepared to ask, or the conversation evolves then into questioning. So
Nice.
yeah.
Cool.
I have a question. I was just wondering if you had anything to say about like managing conflict between employees that's like distracting from the work of the crew, or like distracting like romances as well.
It's tricky. Maybe Beth has some strategies. We have dealt with this before, and we usually try to get the 2 people or the multiple parties involved to sit down and have a conversation, about how it is distracting from work, and that we, sometimes maybe we can hash things out collectively, but that it can't be an issue at work. So I don't know, Beth, if you have any other advice on something like that, or anyone else here?
You are muted, Beth, just FYI.
I think our advice would be similar to what you just said, Andrew. And sometimes the unfortunate piece is that as the business owner manager, you have to enforce what you want to have happen, which many of us don't want to be in that position, but ultimately it's your business. If productivity, if it's affecting the team, productivity, efficiency, quality of product, you need to enforce what you need to do to protect your business. And that's a hard thing to do.
Nice. Another question in the chat. You mentioned offering health and retirement benefits. Any resources we can look at to get started? Everything I've seen has been so much more expensive than what is available as an individual due to our small staff size, 3 to 6 employees. Question for either.
Yeah, it's probably more suited to Beth. So we benefit from being part of a larger organization, and that's how it works for us. But for a small, family farm, I don't know if you have any resources on that, Beth.
No, it's super challenging. I think and the whole landscape of what's available for in the marketplaces and subsidized healthcare is changing. That things that I would have pointed to a year ago, I don't know that they're going to be affordable anymore.
Another question related to benefits. Do you have different benefits for part-time versus full-time, Andrew?
No. No, I think the one key difference is the amount of time and energy put into training a part-time versus a full-time person is drastically different. And we're really investing quite a bit of time and energy into our full-time staff with the hope that they'll stay on, and also acknowledging that they're potentially trying to make this a career. So that's a way of, helping retain these staff here on site.
All right, this is great. We're getting lots of questions in the chat. This one even got seconded. Transitions between tasks often eat up a lot of labor time, especially on small farms. Tips for minimizing that waste?
Yeah, so as a manager, I'm always trying to think 2 or 3 or 4 steps ahead. So before we're done harvesting lettuce, I know what the next thing we're harvesting is, where it is, and I'm making sure I'm telling folks as they're finishing the lettuce the next thing. And that's a skill that I try to train my assistant manager in. It's a skill that I try to train my core staff in, so that when I'm not there, they're doing the same thing. It takes some practice. And if you're not used to doing it, you put quite a bit of energy into thinking it through. But we start the day with a plan that outlines sort of step number 1 for the day, step number 2 for the day, step number 3 for the day. And then that's a plan that if I'm not there, the team can take, and whoever's leading the crew, it's their responsibility to make sure that they're thinking about task number 2 before task number 1 is finished. So setting up the team on task number 1, and then as we're 3/4 of the way through that task, setting up task number 2 for the team. So
Great strategy. Another question. What have been the most effective channels for recruitment? Where do you look for potential employees? Where do you post your job openings? Which ones have worked best?
It's tricky. For us, it's gotten harder and harder to find people that want to do this work, especially people that want to do it full time and work year round. We've actually had the most success with people that have just shown up to the farm and want to work. It's probably people that have done a little bit of digging and research, maybe people that have, seen our product, or seen a talk like this. I do reach out to some of the local schools, the tech schools, the community colleges, and that's a way that we've gotten some folks. We have gotten quite a few people through Indeed, which is has a wide reach. Good Food Jobs is they're great. We occasionally will get someone through Good Food Jobs. They're typically people that aren't located from around here. So if you don't have housing, that's an issue. And if you're hoping them to stay multiple seasons, it often doesn't work out. So that's my experience with something like Good Food Jobs. But as much as you can, tapping into your local networks, for me, that's been the best strategy for finding folks. So, and then we host all sorts of school groups, and I'm constantly putting the word out to everyone. If you want to try farming for a summer, come work a job for us. And someone starts as a part-time person may then become a full-time person and stay here 4 or 5 years. So
great. Anyone else care to share any places you found successful?
I would just say that in Vermont, where I am, like the reputation of the farm is a really important thing in terms of the quality of the applicants. There's, farms like Appleton, would have good manager, they're organized, you end on time, all those things that contribute to somebody wanting to, there's lots of opportunities to learn. If they're interested, they'll give you the big picture. All those things that Andrew talked about are selling points for, in the word of mouth kind of marketing, it's a form of marketing. And it works the other way too. that, no, you don't want to work there, that they're really disorganized. They have us in the greenhouses in the middle of the day, you know, like that. The reverse can happen too. So part of being an attractive employer is the things that Andrew's doing to get quality applicants.
Nice. Yes, Emily, please.
I just had a quick thing to add in here. There's a lot of questions in the chat that that we have a workshop for or a webinar for coming up. If you missed the beginning, you might not have seen the full lineup. So I figured I would just give a quick rundown of the upcoming workshops. They're not all up on our website yet, but we'll be sending out a link to the next one in a follow-up email to this workshop. The next workshop is on keeping your farm payroll strong if things go wrong on your farm, like you have crop failures. That one's going to be in November. The one after that is on budgeting for labor costs and using financial tools to do that. That one's going to be in December. Following that, we have effective hiring practices and payroll solutions. That one's going to be in January. We have farm hiring laws made simple and the legal implications of hiring, which is going to be with Farm Common. So any legal questions that you have, this is going to be a really great one to go to. That one's going to be in February. Then the last one's going to be building a positive workplace culture, and that's going to be in March. So they'll be talking about incentives for keeping people around and building a good team and a good work environment.
Thank you, Emily. Yeah, actually, I think I was going to post in the chat the registration info about the upcoming one. So I just posted that. I guess I'll keep going with a few more questions in the chat if you all are down. I know we've got a few more minutes. So somebody asked about
that's something that you know you
how much time spent on daily check-in meeting, and then how much of that is communicated verbally versus written, Andrew?
I would say it's 10 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes in the afternoon. For us, it's time well spent. There is a written plan with details as needed, which is sort of posted to the team. It's handwritten, so it's sort of just lives in our meeting space. And then we literally talk through every step of that plan, you know, first thing in the morning, you know, welcoming staff input, you know, talking about modifications when we do our sort of midday check-in. So.
Great. And then related to the last question I'm seeing in the chat, as a job seeker, Sydney has looked at the North American Food Systems Network for jobs. So anyone listening to the recording and not seeing the chat, that might be another place to post. Question, what incentives do you offer to foster staff retention?
Yeah. So I think if you can offer year-round work or close to year-round work, it takes the seasonal nature of the work out of it. And that goes a long way. So I know some of our core staff really have a hard time finding jobs just for 3 or 4 months, and ultimately might drive them away from seasonal farm work. I also really stress the job as a learning opportunity, and for people that want to stay for multiple seasons, we invest a lot of time in training them, you know, not only on how to do things, but the why. It's not just equipment operation, it's troubleshooting, it's equipment maintenance. You know, it's not just how do you seed stuff in a greenhouse, it's how do you change the plastic on the greenhouse and, you know, make modifications. So involving folks in some of these sort of, you know, less typical tasks as much as possible really sort of piques people's interest if they want to make a career out of this. So.
Great.
I've also heard that for employees seeing their suggestions implemented is a really powerful thing. And especially when it actually does make the enterprise more efficient or more comfortable, or, you know, if it leads to an improvement, that can be a really powerful motivator for someone to stick around. They feel valued and appreciated.
Great insight. Any other questions, or if I missed anyone's question in the chat, please repost it or let me know or unmute and ask. But yeah, okay, so in the chat, we help our employees find off-season jobs as much as we can. So that can be a nice way to help out your employees, keep them around. Thanks for sharing that, Stacy.
I have a question. Are there specific lifestyle do you look for employees that have a specific type of lifestyle that you know will fit more with your farm work? Am I asking that question right? I don't know.
Yeah. Probably not necessarily a lifestyle. I mean, there's certainly certain characteristics of people that we're looking for. You know, people that want to work with their hands, that want to be outside. You know, people that want to work on a team. I mean, we're a team of 10 or 12 people, and we're often working as one unit. People that are just interested in either growing plants, people who've gardened, people who've done landscaping, people interested in food. I've worked in the food industry. But yeah, in terms of their sort of personal lives, I guess I haven't gone that far in terms of interviewing folks. So
Yeah, because I guess I asked because we've kind of cycled through so many people that I guess they didn't realize that you have to get dirty, you have to get sweaty, you have to lift heavy things. And I'm really trying to rack my brain, like, how do you not understand that that's part of the thing when you apply?
So
like
yeah, there's something, some farms do working interviews. We don't do that, but I know some farms, when you interview, you come and work for 2 hours, and that gives people a taste of what the work is. That could be a strategy. I don't necessarily warn people, but I do try to really spell it out when we're interviewing, that when it's 95 degrees, you're going to be crawling around in the soil and weeding carrots for 4 hours. You know, that's what you're signing up for.
Okay, so I guess we should just be a little bit more obvious about it.
One test I've heard of farmers giving, and I actually have tried this a few times, for people that they're interviewing, is to go on a very, very brisk walk across the farm, and see if they like keep up with you, or if they get distracted by things, or if they just don't seem like they are on task with keeping up with you.
I like that.
Nice.
Thank you for the suggestions. Okay.
Selena, did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, appreciate Andrew all that you've given. What you mentioned about feedback and things like that with the employees. Can you talk a little bit about how your as managers and supervisors that maybe you come together with decisions to discuss about employees and such?
Yeah. Yeah, so you know, I mean, so there's a sort of a time of year when we're planning, typically the off season, and that would be our assistant manager and myself, and maybe one or two of our core staff members, and that's when we might do a lot of sort of team or group brainstorming, and bouncing ideas off of each other, you know, talking about how we can improve of different aspects of the farm. And then in a day-to-day sense, it's usually sort of whoever's managing the team in terms of the actual feedback. So hopefully by the time we're in the field, you know, our system is established, and at the very least, whoever is managing the team that day knows the system, and they don't have to think about how we're harvesting lettuce, or how we're going to transplant this crop of tomatoes. Hopefully everything is spelled out, and the person leading the team, can sort of set the team up and then give feedback as to how it's going and how folks can do better. So
Appreciate it. So sort of daily check-ins, and also like at certain times. Is that the frequencies too?
yeah, so the feedback happens constantly. If we're harvesting lettuce and someone's cutting the head too high, I'll take the lettuce and say, look at the leaves are gonna fall off when the person in the wash station washes this lettuce. It's gonna slow them down. We're also gonna have a head of lettuce that's too small for our CSA. So try to explain what's happening, and then demonstrate how we'd like it to be harvested. So that's happening constantly. And then the flip side is, if someone is harvesting lettuce and doing a great job and working quickly, saying, hey, John, you're doing awesome today. Keep it up. This is exactly what we want. So, it's constant.
Yeah, I like that reminder to also give the positive feedback and encouragement. We're getting a book recommendation in the chat. Leaders should check out the book Radical Candor. Thank you for that. Yeah, any final questions folks have here? Really appreciate all the great questions and comments coming in here. This is awesome. Well,
Just thank you for both presentations, and also all the recommendations and everything that all the participants had done. Like, so a bunch of things to think about now, and I love it.
yes, well, if there are no final questions, I'll second that. Thank you, Alana. Well said. Super huge thank you to Beth and Andrew for joining us after normal working hours, sharing your insights, being here to answer questions and help us along the way. So yeah, really appreciate you making the time and sharing, and you're getting love in the chat. I don't know if you're seeing that, but yeah, thank you, and thank you to you all who have joined here. And like I said, thanks for your questions and sharing your comments. A little poll will pop up, so if you want to take that, feel free. But yeah, if nobody has any burning questions in the last minute or two, I guess I'll let everyone go. And thanks to everyone. This is very informative. We'll be sharing the resources in the recording so you can reference it. I don't know, Emily, if you have any final thoughts or anything you want to share?
If you see the survey pop up when you exit the Zoom, please fill it out. It does really help. I get to look through all of them. It's all anonymous, and we do take your feedback and use it to improve our future workshops. So thank you for filling out the surveys.
And thank you, Emily, for all you're doing to make this series happen. Really appreciate your efforts. And yeah, it's going to bear much fruit, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have one quick question.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Do you have any big questions you've asked during your interviews that maybe people have, like, you've noticed, like, kind of brightens their eyes and they're like, oh, didn't know I was signing up for that? Or anything that you've kind of asked for sure every time you interview someone that kind of is like helps you know if these people are understanding the job responsibilities?
Good question. Probably nothing that really stands out. I'm sure I probably have some odd questions I ask, but yeah, I don't know. Beth, I don't know if you have any wisdom on that, but
So I just put in the chat, we have a short 20 questions for any job interview that you can just to kind of get the juices flowing, some ideas about what you might want to ask. I think personally, I think it's helpful if you have some questions that you ask the candidate, and then you ask a parallel question to the reference is like, that is like the really helpful, like something that's important to you to know about. You ask the candidate, you ask the reference, and so you have like 2 data points to help you with your decision making on that, or, you know, or more if you have multiple references, that you get that from multiple perspectives.
I
Awesome.
work
Thank you.
primarily with high schoolers, but I find it really helpful to ask when someone's energy is highest and lowest in a day and what they need or do to take care of their personal needs. And that's like really enlightening as someone who's like trying to like support an employee, especially when they're like new to the position or new to physical work, and also gets them thinking about that and whether or not this is a good fit for them.
That's been a big issue this year. A lot of young adults and kind of introducing them into this where like the farming lifestyle and things where like, you know, you can't always take breaks and getting ready for all inclement weather and kind of like the weather one's the big one. Everybody needs to change clothes a lot and not really being prepared. And so that was kind of one of the big ones, but sweet. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Great question. And I don't know if you heard earlier, iPhone 9, but if you want to make sure I can get you the follow-up resources, send me in a private chat your first and last name. I'll make sure you get those.
Oh, will do. Sorry. Yeah. And Zoom's a little weird. Sorry. Thank you.
I hear you. I've run into some issues with it myself. All right, cool. Well, I think we're all set, but yeah, thank you, Beth. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you everybody who participated. Happy growing, and may you have a joyful time with your crews and do the meaningful work of growing food for the communities.
Thanks, Ben, and bye-bye. Good
Yeah,
night.
take care, Wesley.
Cheers.
Go on.
Great job.
Yep, thank you.
It was awesome.